Hi, fourth graders. This is your Language Arts e-learning lesson for Monday, April 27th. Let's start with grammar. We're going to be on page 160, a review of comparing with the adjectives good and bad. At the top of the page, the adjectives good and bad have special forms for making comparisons. These words do not take the endings er and est or use the words more and most or less and least to make comparisons. Okay, like the adjectives we've done in the past, you were using the suffixes er and est, or you were using more and most with those adjectives. Well, when we're doing good and bad, they have their own unique forms and they do not use the er, est, or more or most. So let's take a look. Good. The dress rehearsal of our play was good. There's your adjective, just simply telling us about the dress rehearsal. No comparison is being made there. That means nothing is being compared. We don't have one thing being compared to something else. We're just simply stating a fact that the dress rehearsal was good. Our first performance was better. In other words, that performance was better than what the dress rehearsal was. And then our last performance was better, or rather was best of all. So you have that the dress rehearsal was good, the actual first performance was better than what the dress rehearsal was, and the last performance was the best one of all the performances. So you see that you have good, better, and best. If we're talking about things that are bad, we might say, I had a bad case of stage fright. Again, there is no comparison being made here, just simply stating a fact, a bad case of stage fright. Then it was worse in the second act. So in other words, it was bad, but then during the second act, the stage fright became worse than it was in the first act. So now we're comparing two things. That's your comparative adjective, where we compare two. So the stage fright was worse in the second act than it was in the first act. Okay, so we're comparing two things there. And then the last part is the worst stage fright came just before my entrance. So it was bad. I had a bad case of stage fright. No comparison is being made, simply stating a fact. Then it was worse in the second act. Now we have the comparative adjective because we're comparing two things. We're comparing the stage fright in the first act compared to the stage fright in the second act. And then we have the third one that we're comparing. That's what we call the superlative, where we're using that third comparison. And it's the worst stage fright came just before my entrance. So now the one that was worst of all is the one that came right before the entrance. So now we're comparing more than two events. So it's a superlative adjective. So it's the comparative when we're comparing just two things, and superlative when we compare three. And then we have a chart here comparing with good and bad. When you're describing one person, place, or thing, we say it was good or it was bad. If you're comparing two people, places, or things, we use better or worse, ending in an E. And then when we're comparing three or more people, places, or things, we use best or worst. Again, notice that they both end with st. That might help you to remember the difference between worse with an E and worst with a T. So it's good, better, best, bad, worse, worst. Okay? So we're just going to take a look at a few sentences down here at the bottom of the page, and let's review these together. This play was blank than the last play. This play was better than the last play. We're using that ER when we are comparing two things. See, better when we're comparing two. So we're comparing two. We're comparing this play to the last play, so we use better. Number two, Mary had a blank cough. We're just simply stating a fact about her cough. There is no comparison, so we say bad. She had a bad cough. Number three, Her coughing grew blank in the last speech. Her coughing grew worse in the last speech. Again, we're really only kind of comparing two things here. You had the cough, but then it got worse during the last speech. But we would say her coughing grew worse in the last speech. Okay, so we're using that worse with an E when we're comparing two. Okay? And then number 4, her coughing was the blank thing that happened on stage. Okay, her coughing was the worst thing. In other words, of all the things that happened on stage, this was worse, the worst. Now remember, when you're comparing 3 or more, that's when you would use either best or worst. And so here we're talking about of everything that happened on stage. This was the worst thing. And then number 5, of the 4 singers, Merle was the, okay, of the 4. So again, we're talking about comparing 3 or more. It's either going to be best or worst. And in this case, of the 4 singers, Merle was the best. Okay? All right, now, what I would like you to work on your own is page 177. Page 177, it's called Comparing with Good and Bad. And up at the top, the adjectives good and bad have special forms for making comparisons. Use better and worse to compare to. Use best and worst to compare more than to. Okay, and again, you could always go back to the page, back to page 160. Remember, always your textbook page, the review pages in the back, always give you the pages where the lesson was taught, so you can go back and take a look if you need to. Okay, you're going to skip the first section, and you're going to move down to sentence number 7. Okay, right before number 7, it says to write the adjective that correctly completes each sentence. The example, our band is the blank school band. And the correct answer there would be best, the best school band. Okay? So numbers 7 through 11, you only need to write the correct adjective. And then further down at the bottom, write full sentences to compare each pair of items. Use a form of good or bad in each sentence. Let's take a look. Here's the example they gave, a sweater and a jacket. So they want you to create a sentence where you're going to be making a comparison of the sweater and the jacket. And so their example, on a cold day, a jacket is better than a sweater. So you're using the idea of a sweater and a jacket, and you have to compare them in some way. So on a cold day, a jacket is better than a sweater. You only have 2 items to compare there, so you would either have to use worse or better. Okay. Number 12, comparing cats and dogs. Number 13, comparing today's weather with yesterday's weather. Okay, so again, numbers 1 and 2, just really comparing 2 things. Number 14, your favorite book and all other books. Okay, your favorite book to all other books. Number 15, this morning and this afternoon. And number 16, swimming and diving. So in each case, you have to use the two phrases that they've given you, or the 2 nouns that they've given you. You must use those phrases in your sentence, and also include in your sentence a form of either good or bad. Okay, and again, look at what they have done with the example, a sweater and a jacket. They added more to it, of course, to make that complete sentence. On a cold day, and then they said a jacket is better than a sweater. Okay, so again, they're just giving you the nouns or the phrases that they want you to use to compare, and it's up to you how you do that, and you can add, of course, you add more to it to form a complete sentence. Okay, so here you only have to do numbers 7 through 16, 7 through 11, just writing the correct adjective, and then 12 through 16, writing complete sentences showing a comparison between the things that they have given you. All right, besides your grammar, today you have Wordly Wise 13E. Wordly Wise 13E, which is Anne Frank's diary. So you need to read this passage carefully, and then you have the questions that you need to answer. Remember that you answer those questions, please, using complete sentences. When a vocabulary word is not used in the question, you need to make sure that you include one in your answer. Okay? All right, make sure you complete all 15, and again, they need to be in complete sentences. I shouldn't even have to remind you of that anymore. That should just be a given. Okay, you're just about in 5th grade. You should be writing using complete sentences, remembering to capitalize the first word and punctuation. And also, don't forget, most of you should also be doing it in cursive. Okay, in addition to your Wordly Wise, today's spelling, you have pre-test for lesson 27. So again, you take that first practice test as a pre-test. And then also today you have workbook pages 105 and 106 to complete as well. And then today for fever, it is chapter 21. Make sure you answer the questions there. Okay? If you have any questions on anything in language arts for today, please make sure you reach out to me so that I can answer any questions you might have and help you out. Okay? I'll see you later. Bye.